Hippocrates of Chios squared the lune. He thought he squared the circle. Not till the 1800s did mathematicians prove that pi is a transcendental number. He also thought of axiomatics, and came up with the first axiomatic treatment of all mathematics of his time. This work has not come down to us. Euclid's Elements would be the Greek axiomatic treatment of much Greek mathematics, and really Babylonian. All the major mathematical results from Babylonian times through Greek would be crystallized in Euclid's Elements. Archimedes would make the first proof and calculation of pi beyond the Babylonian hexagon calculation of 3. He'd square the parabola, calculate the centers of gravity of various geometric figures, do a little bit of integral and even differential calculus, we're talking about very specialized cases, and he's use a screw to move water from the bottom of a well. Apollonius of Perga would make a deductive treatment of the conics. The Greeks' mathematics of conics, number theory, irrational numbers, and trigonometry, and the axiomatic treatment puts them light years ahead of all previous cultures up to their time. Diophantus compiled a lot of number theory, Pythagorean triples, finding number theory solutions to equations, meaning sets of numbers that solve an algebraic equation, and not just a single solution. These types of number theory problems occupy mathematicians today. Diophantus's book might not be an axiomatic treatment as in the works above, but the various techniques to solve a variety of number theory problems are amazing. Hipparchus and Ptolemy wrote on trigonometry and astronomy. The Greek exploration of astronomy takes us back to the interplay between mathematical science and mythology. I start with Homer. Thomas Heath quotes a Plato dialogue Epinomis which says astronomy really began when mathematics was applied. The true astronomer will not be the man who cultivates astronomy in the manner of Hesiod, close but later contemporary of Homer, and many other writers of that type, Homer, concerning himself only with such things as settings and risings, but the man who will investigate the 7 revolutions in the 8 revolutions and each describing the same circular orbit, i.e. the separate motions of the Sun, Moon, and the 5 planets combined with the 8th motion, that of the sphere of the fixed stars, or the daily rotation, which speculations can never be easily mastered by the ordinary person but demand extraordinary powers. And as stated much later, it will be proper to discuss this, in order that we may know whether the universe revolves and the earth stands still, or the universe stands still and the earth rotates. For there have been those who asserted that it is we whom the order of nature causes to move without our being aware of it, and that risings and settings do not occur by virtue of the motion of the heaven, but that we ourselves rise and set. The subject is worthy of consideration, in order that we may know in what conditions we live, whether the abode allotted to us is the most slowly or the most quickly moving, whether God moves everything around us, or ourselves instead. Seneca, Nat. Quaest. v.2.3 through Thomas Heath's Aristarchus of Samos, page 308. Some astronomical things mentioned by Homer, Book 23 of Iliad mentions a morning star, but at the time when the morning star goes forth to tell that light is coming over the earth, Thomas Heath relates in his Aristarchus of Samos book that Pythagoras, or Pythagoreans who followed him, figured out that the morning star that rises at different years, and sets at other years is the same star. Researchers have shown that the Babylonians were the first to figure out that this morning star is the same as the setting star. Homer mentions in Book Chapter 18 of his Iliad, upon it he wrought the earth, and the sky, and the sea, the untiring sun and the full moon, and all the stars that encircle the sky Pleiades and Hyades, Orion the mighty hunter and the bear, which mean also call the wain, which revolves in its place and watches Orion. Once again, we see the Pleiades and the constellations Orion and the Bear mentioned. At least he doesn't say some god controls them like in the Book of Job and Amos chapter 5 verse 8. From the Nebra sky disk to the Bible and Homer, the Pleiades is mentioned again and again. Homer's Iliad is most remarkable for its nature poetry. Homer, mostly in the Iliad, but some in the Odyssey as well, uses a lot of nature observations to explain a lot of human behaviors, or to set the scene. The Iliad I found was very dense in these. So, I can't give all. I'll share 2 examples. But as soon as Alexandros saw him come out in front, his heart sank and he slunk back into the ranks to save himself. He might have been someone walking through the woods who suddenly sees a snake, and jumps back all of a tremble pale with fear. In Book Chapter 3, near the beginning, Diomedes shuddered when he saw Ares. As a man after a long march stops helpless when he sees a furious river foaming and flowing along, and leaps back, so Diomedes leapt back, and cried out to his people. Book Chapter 5. I find some of the creative thinking Jacob Bronowski shows in his Science and Human Values. Jacob notes some observations about how hikers recognize and match up different sides of a mountain. On the morning of the 27th we turned into the Lobugiacola, the valley which contains the Khumbu Glacier, which flows from the south and southwest side of Everest. As we climbed into the valley we saw at its head the line of the main watershed. I recognized immediately the peaks and saddles so familiar to us from the Rongbuk, the north side, Pomori, Lingtran, the Lola, the North Peak and the west shoulder of Everest. It is curious that Angtarki, who knew these features as well as I did from the other side and had spent many years of his boyhood grazing yaks in this valley, had never recognized them as the same, nor did he do so now until I pointed them out to him. Eric Shipton, through Jacob Bronowski's Science and Human Values, page 30. Perception is like two complementary surfaces. Either the surfaces match, or they don't. Jacob Bronowski points out that true and false exists at the proposition level and not the formation of abstractions concepts level. Once the sense data is put into a concept form, then we ask what is true. If this is really a mountain, we say, then the bearing of that landmark should be due east. I'd like to quote the Shakespeare he also quotes as well. Is this a dagger, which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee, come, let me clutch thee, I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling, as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation?